Hi, this is Mrs. Robleski, and today we're going to look at how to subtract fractions with renaming. So we have worked on subtracting fractions, and we know that you cannot add or subtract fractions unless the denominators are the same. So we know how to do that. We find equivalent fractions between the two terms. And when I say math term, I mean the two things that you are adding or subtracting. So let's look at number 12. In number 12, we have 5 and 1/10 minus 2 and 1/5. Okay? So we know that 1/10 and 1/5 do not have the same denominator. And we also know that in order to get them to be the same denominator, we need to look at one denominator and see if we can get it to the other denominator. So right now I'm looking at this 1/5 over here, and I realize that if I can multiply 5 by 2, then I will get the 10. So I realize I only need to really change the 1/5. And to do that, I'm going to multiply the 5 times 2. Whatever we do to the bottom, we must do to the top as well. Okay. So then when I do that, I am changing that fraction. I'm writing an equivalent fraction. So just beneath that, I'm going to write what that new fraction is. 2, and 1 times 2 up here is 2. The 5 times the 2 is 10. 2 and 2/10. I don't need to change anything with the first term because it's already in tenths. So I have 5 and 1/10 minus 2 and 2/10. We've done these types of problems before. What we haven't done before today is figure out what to do when you can't actually solve this problem this way. Sure, I can subtract 5 minus 2, but what I can't do is subtract 1 minus 2. So what we need to do is in this first term, in the 5 and 1/10, we need to borrow some of that whole number. Okay? And what we talked about in class today was how to do that. In order to do that, you simply say to yourself, well, I'm going to take away one of these whole numbers from the whole 5. Cross that 5 out. Try that again. Okay, cross the 5 out and put a 4. And then since I'm taking that whole number from this fraction over here, this 1/10, I'm going to just add a 10 to the numerator to get that back in. So let's recopy what we have so far a little more neatly. I now have 4, and then I look at the 1 and I look at the 10. 1 plus 10 is 11. Same denominator. I have 4 and 11/10 minus 2 and 2/10. Well, that I can do. 4 and 11/10 minus 2 and 2/10 equals. Well, let me subtract the 4 and the 2 first. 4 minus 2 is 2. 11 minus 2 is 9, and the denominator is the same. All right, let's do that again with the next problem. 4 and 1/3 minus 1 and 7/9. Let's get them to have the same denominator. Multiply the 1/3 times 3 and times 3. So then I'm left with 4 and 3/9 minus 1 and 7/9. I don't need to change the 7/9 because it's already in ninth form. Equals. Okay, I can't subtract this 3 minus this 7. Just won't work. So let me take 1 from the 4, cross that out and write a 3. And then I'm going to look at the denominator. My denominator is 9. Going to add 9 to the numerator. So now I have 3, and then I add the 3 plus the 9. That's 12 ninths minus 1 and 7 ninths. All right, now let's do the subtraction. The 3 minus the 1 is 2, and 12 minus 7 is 5. The denominator stays the same, it's still 9, 2 and 5 ninths. Okay, let's look at number 14. 3 and 2/3 minus 1 and 3/4. Well, this is a case of having to look at both fractions and multiply by the opposite denominator. So the 2/3 we will multiply by 4 because that's the opposite denominator. And the 3/4 we will multiply by 3 because that's the opposite denominator. I'll rewrite underneath what the new fractions, what the new mixed numbers will be. It will be 3 and 8/12 minus 1 and 9/12 equals. Okay, I cannot subtract 8 minus 9. I can't subtract this 8 minus 9. So I need to take 1 from the whole number. That's going to be a 2. And then add it back into the numerator. And I add the denominator here to the numerator. Now my new mixed number here is 2 and 20/12 minus 1 and 9/12. And my answer, I do 2 minus 1 equals 1, and 20 minus 9 is 11. 1 and 11/12. All right, last one. 4 and 3/4 minus 2 and 4/5. We'll have to multiply by the opposite denominator. So let's multiply 3/4 times 5 times 5 and 4/5 times 4 times 4. So I'm going to end up with, I'm going to move over this way a little bit. Okay. I'm going to end up with 4 and 15/20 minus 2 and 16/20 equals. Let's borrow from this 4 because this 15 is too small to subtract 16. Cross out the 4, write a 3. Then over here, add the denominator to the numerator. So now we have 3, 15 plus 20 is 35/20 minus 2 and 16/20. Okay? That equals 3 minus 2 is 1. And if you need to do the 35 minus 16 on a calculator or over here, you can do that. 15 minus 6 is 9. 2 minus 1 is 1. So you should have 2 and 19/20. Okay. The homework that was assigned for tonight. Let's see if we can't take a look at that. Okay. So the first problem was 5 and 1/8 minus 2 and 11/12. All right. So right away, you notice that there are bigger numbers, okay? So you're going to have to figure out how to get the denominators to be the same. My advice is to start with the bigger number, start with the 12, and start listing out the multiples of 12. And then the second I see one that I can also divide by 8, that's when I will stop, okay? So 12. 12 times 1 is 12. 12 times 2 is 24. All right, I'm going to stop there because I know that I can divide 24 by 8. Okay, so I know I can get this 8 to 24. So then I think to myself, how many times do I multiply 8 to get to 24? Or what's 24 divided by 8? you can do that multiplication, you can do that division, or you can go through your multiplication facts for 8, and what you'll come up with is, let's see, 8 times 1 is 8, 8 times 2 is 16, 8 times 3 is 24. Okay, there it is. So in order to get this 8 to 24, I'm going to multiply by 3, and I'll multiply this 1 by 3 as well. To get the 12 to 24, I'm just multiplying by 2. Okay? All right, let's rewrite this. Let's rename this. So this is 5. The 1 times the 3 is 3. The 8 times the 3 is 24. Minus, the 2 will stay the same. 11 times 2 is 22. And 12 times 2, well, I just did it all the way over here, is 24. Okay. I cannot subtract 3 minus 22. So I'm going to take 1 from the whole number, cross it out, and put a 4. And then I'm going to add 3 plus 24. I'm adding the denominator to the numerator. The number I come up with is 4. And let's do 24, 25, 26, 27. 27 24ths minus 2 and 22 24ths equals, subtract 4 minus 2 is 2. 27 minus 22, again, if you need to do it over here, you can. Or if you need to use a calculator for this part, you can, is 5 24ths. And I double checked, do I need to reduce it? I do not. So my answer is 2 and 5 24ths. Okay. The rest of the homework, I want you to try on your own, but I've now gone through I've gone through 5 different problems where we are renaming our fractions so that we can subtract more easily. Good luck on your homework, and I will see what you come up with. Rock it out, 5th grade.